Well, hello, friends and followers. Welcome back to TJ's Modeling Bench. It is time for another update on the USACC Camaro build for this year. And this is going to be the last update before we reveal the finished product. And I've still got a fair amount of work to do. It's actually a lot of little things outside of the actual paint job and decals for it. Everything else is pretty much just little stuff. So let me bring you up to where we are now, and then we'll see what's going to be happening after USACC. The engine is in. The engine compartment, for the most part, is done. I may have to do some modifying of not the firewall itself, but our brake master cylinder. This is the kit piece. And if I set the interior bucket onto the chassis, and you'll see wires because we have lights on the package shelf in the back. The two outermost lamps will be amber yellow, and the two innermost are red blue flashing. All right, so it sits in here roughly like this. Now the way it actually goes into the car, this gets put into the body, and then all that goes down onto the chassis and floor pan. Anyway, so roughly it sits like that, and then the firewall will go in right there in front of it. However, and this is where I have a fitment issue. So the brake master cylinder is touching the cylinder head right now, or the valve cover rather. And if you look at it from overhead, you can see that the firewall is actually pushed that way slightly. So you got a little more overhang on this side where the fender is versus this side where it's almost flush. So I think I'm going to have to remove that brake cylinder, and I might have a 3D printed one that is a slightly smaller version that may give me the clearance I need. So I'll have to look at that a little closer later on. So anyway, that's something yet to be determined. The radiator, we have an upper and a lower hose, and you'll notice in our interior I did put seat belts in the front two seats. I thought about putting them in the back, but you really won't ever see that. So, but with the open doors, you will be able to see the driver and passenger seat. So I felt like the belts were appropriate. Everything else is looking pretty good there. Let me turn this over, and you can see here's the underside has turned out pretty well. I had to remake, all right, because this is not the kit engine. This is an aftermarket 3D printed engine. The oil pan sits down slightly lower and is slightly wider than the kit motor. So this sway bar, I believe it is, in the front, I actually had to cut part of that off and then remake this portion of it. I just used some brass tubing that I had that was approximately the same size and bent it accordingly, and then glued it back to the other two ends of it. I needed a little bit more curvature or dip in there to clear the oil pan. So now it clears visually. I mean, if it were supposed to work mechanically, it still would be in the way, but it looks the part, and that's all that really matters, right? Everything else on here is stock out of the kit. Only the engine, and then of course that piece that I had to remake is not out of box. Everything else is out of box and painted according to what I thought looked correct for the reference photos I had. All right, so there's that. We'll set that aside for a moment. Our body is in primer. I did do on the interior, I used my dried out Clorox wipe cloth to create a fabric interior for the headliner. And you'll see I do have the rear window glass in, and I may actually put in the windshield glass prior to getting paint on this. And that's going to make things difficult, but any way I do this is going to be difficult because with opening the doors, let me get this piece back over here again. So with opening the doors on this and putting our interior bucket into it, I don't know if I can do this quickly and easily on camera. Probably not. Anyway, I'll explain here. Let me back off a little bit. Okay, so when this goes in, you've got this whole side, visible. So we got to have the doors on, but I also need my door jambs to get painted. So I still need to mask off these interior door cards and finish up my door jambs. In fact, they are not complete yet at this point. They are painted, obviously, and I don't know how easily you can see, but I did add, let's zoom back in again. So I added 3D printed window cranks. The Camaro badging there on the door card itself is from photo etch from Model Car Garage, and I probably need to go over that yet with some of the Fusion Firm chrome so that it matches. And then the door handles, I actually cut off what was there, the plastic representation of the handle, and hopefully you can see that we actually have a true handle here. And I just used some, I think it was 10 thousandths tin, and bent it to the shape that I thought was correct and filed it slightly. And then we just cut a slot in the leading edge of the armrest and slipped it in there. And then it's been painted with the Fusion Firm Fusion Firm chrome or silver paint, whatever they call it. Anyway, it's the same stuff everybody's using for chrome at the moment. So, but what I was trying to say is, I don't know if I can get everything painted correctly without having the interior installed in it. And if I install the interior, I have to put the windshield in prior to that. I don't really know why car guys don't put window glass in at the beginning, other than the fact that, it requires a lot of masking tape to cover it when you go to do paint. But, in the airplane world, that's pretty much how everybody does it. You mask off your window panes or your canopy and leave the frames exposed so that they get the paint color that's required for that. So I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out just exactly what to do and how to do it. And we do have our trunk lid is hinged. Let me see if I can get this on. All right, so our trunk lid is hinged, not glued in, obviously. But there is a rare earth magnet right underneath where my thumbnail is there. And then I've got this small hoop of piano wire that the magnet is attracted to, that is supposed to keep the trunk lid shut, but I don't know that it's strong enough, because if I turn it upside down, the weight of the hood will open it. So anyway, it was an attempt at best. So yeah, what else have we got to show? Wheels and tires. All right, so wheels and tires came from MCV Products, and these are the Chevy Rallies. The kit ones, the slots weren't opened, and I thought, well, maybe I can drill them out and, you know, open them up, and it just wasn't working out as clearly and as nicely as I wanted it. So I found these at MCV Products. Matthew had them, and I think they work great. I've added Schrader valves to all 4 of them, and you'll see this one front tire, I also have a wheel weight on it. Now, the one thing I had to do on the backside, so originally in this tire and wheel kit, you've got these rings, which are they're not exactly trim rings, because they actually go into the backside, and you may be able to see there's a bit of a lip on the one side. So what it does is you put this in on the rear side, and it sets the depth for the front of the wheel itself, so that you get the proper depth in the tire. Well, obviously I needed to come up with some way to mount the wheel to the car when it was ready to do that. And the original kit wheel backs would not fit inside here without a lot of trimming down and sanding, and it seemed like a lot of work. So I thought, well, we'll just not put those in. But then the original wheel backs are not quite large enough to seat in there properly. So I just went and used some 10,000 styrene and shimmed it to the point where it does fit. And then that's glued in, of course. So slight modification, but I think they should attach just like the kit wheels would had I used the kit wheels. Okay, so yeah, that's where I'm at, and all I really have left to do is finish my door jambs, get it properly painted and decaled, and get all of my lights installed. There are more lights. We'll have lights in the grill. We've got our headlights. The headlight lenses will go over those holes where the LEDs will plug in from the backside, and you can see that I have opened up the grill, all except for the very center portion of it. I just filed and sanded that away from the backside till it became visible. But I think it's going to look really good once it's installed. What else? Yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, so the next time you see it, it will be finished. And it will be finished by March 15th, which is the deadline. So I'm just under 3 weeks right now, because today is Monday the 23rd of February. So we're just a day under 3 weeks to get it done. So by the time you see this video, it'll probably be probably Wednesday, in all honesty. And then after that, I have actually started to do just a little bit of work on the cord fating. So a lot of these pieces had some serious sink marks in them. So I mixed up some polyester putty from Tamiya and started to fill in all the sink marks and pinholes. Not pinholes, what do you call that? Ejector pin marks, that's the word. Yeah, so I went around with all the parts I found, any kind of sink marks and divots and push pin marks, and filled those. So I'll be sanding that soon, and then that will be the next one that we get really deeply into. And then after that, we'll probably move on to a 1/48 scale F4E Phantom 2. So that is not too far into the distant future itself. Anyway, thank you to all the new subscribers I've had recently. You guys have got me almost to 1,000 subscribers, and I thank you very much for that. Until the next time, y'all, peace and love.